We are calling this our Title Insurance 101 show where Mansoor is going to talk to you about subject twos, wraparounds, anything deed related, how title is conveyed from the seller to the buyer, and so forth. So stay with us and you'll learn a lot about the whole title insurance process. I hope you join it, and please subscribe and hit like on our show, share it with everyone, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Renovating Riches. We're bringing you another show this week, and this is going to be a very, very good one. It's going to be very educational for people that are out there starting out, or even running their business and are dealing with title, insurance, and all those things regarding title. We have here with us today Mr. Mansoor from Transact Title here in Houston. How are you doing, Mansoor?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me out here today.
And we're also joined, of course, by our co-host, Mr. Ricardo Rosales.
And I'm gonna start right now to I'm gonna get on the right foot, basically, by telling you that you need to go to Renovating Riches Radio, subscribe, go on our YouTube channel, go on our Google's Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes.
Hit like.
Hit like, share, comment,
And leave us a
5-star
review.
reviews. 5 stars. If you don't do 5 stars, then you can go look at listen to somebody else. That's what we want to do. We do this. We're taking time from people like Mansoor, who are very busy, in order to provide value to you, and so you can learn and go and grow your business. And today's going to be about real estate, and it's going to be about legalities in real estate. And we brought an expert, somebody that actually owns a title company, and this is one of those subjects that a lot of people don't talk about.
Because it's a very hard subject, you get deep into,
Look,
legal stuff and jargon.
I've been in real estate for about 13 years now.
And you still don't get it.
I still, there's a bunch of stuff that title companies do that we do it because, okay, they tell us we need to sign here and there, but at the end of the day, I don't know what that means, or why they do it a certain way.
Well, let's welcome Mansoor. Mansoor, thanks for being here, first of all. How are you?
Not bad. I appreciate you having me out here today.
Yeah, so Mansoor is with Transact Title. Make sure you follow them as well. I'm pretty sure they have a very active Facebook page, and you're all over the social media. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, where they can find you? And
Sure, not a problem. I'm my name is Mansoor Chaudhry. I'm with Transact Title. My email address is Mansoor at Transact Title. That's MANSOOR at Transact Title, TITLE.com. My phone number is 713-429-5436. And I'm available usually at our Galleria location, but we have a number of offices here in the Houston area: Houston, Katy, Sugarland, Woodlands, and the Galleria.
so make sure to reach out to them if you're especially in the Houston area.
Yeah, a
They'll
lot
be
of
very happy
people,
to
we get the question,
Who do you use for title?
do you know a title company that's investor friendly, right?
You know what? That's a
That's a
good
great term.
good place to start. Mansoor, what exactly would you say defines an investor-friendly title company?
That's a loose term that's been used a lot in this marketplace.
It's a loose cannon. Loose
It
cannon.
is, and I tell everybody, you know what? It can be a misnomer at times. I know that other industries, title included, throw out the term investor friendly. The way I term investor friendly, the way I think that the investors look at it, is that we understand where the investor's coming from. Okay, but that's not the only thing. You have to understand the model of the business, and your underwriting should accommodate and be cognizant of where the investor is trying to do and how to accomplish it. It's more real world underwriting. Okay. So that's where some companies say we're investor friendly. They can wave high. I'm friendly to investors, but that's not the only thing. Your underwriting should be almost specific to how to look at the investor transactions. That includes doing sub twos, doing wrap transactions. Some title companies say investor friendly, but they don't do wraps. They don't do sub twos.
Correct,
Most of them don't.
Some of them think the investor friendly means that you're going to put out a title very quick.
No.
2 days you're going to have title
No,
commitment.
and some people think investor friendly is for the investor that's buying a property with 20% down. Oh yeah, we
Yeah.
take investors here all the
Yeah.
time, right? They're taking investors that are buying properties with 20% down, which is the normal way of
To acquire,
somebody
yeah,
to
like a
acquire a
rental
rental
and-
property. When really that's not the case. In our world, investor friendly is just what he explained, which is doing subject twos, wraps, assignments, blind HUDs, things of that nature.
And we can go. I don't know how deep we're gonna get into details because we know Mansoor is a very very busy person, and we don't have like 3 hours to have him here. But let's start with what does transact title does for these investors. You mentioned things like subject to, wrap. What is it?
Wrap around.
Wraparound mortgages.
You see, these are things that are not very easy, and we want to try to get the message out to our audience. People that are starting out. Let's start with the very basic question of why you need a title company. I mean, why can't you just like a car? You own a car, you want to sell it, you find a buyer, give me the money, give them a piece of paper that says, what is the title of the car, and you're done. Why houses can be bought and sold the same way?
Okay, that's actually a very good question. One of the several important reasons are there as to why you want to use a title company, whether you're in the state of Texas or anywhere in the actual country. The title company provides a function. There's two functions. One is title, to convey the title. One is we do the research and give the insurance. The other component is the escrow component, where we hold the money as a neutral fiduciary and we protect the interests of all parties. Right. That includes all lenders, buyers, sellers, realtors. So you have to have somebody who's going to be fair, who's going to handle the money, right?
Yeah.
So that's the center point. That's where the component is as to why you want to use a title company, because you want to buy a property where you don't have an issue once you get conveyed that grandma's illegitimate heir shows up out of the from 40 years ago and says, I have an interest in that property. Because what the title company does, we'll go back many years. It could be 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever it may be, and look at each of the transfers that were done at the sales to make sure they were done properly.
Correctly. Yeah.
Okay. And then once we know that that's been done, there's no other easements, heirs, IRS issues, anti-terrorism issues, things of that nature. Then we'll say, okay, here's the commitment, and we can insure on this transaction. And we guarantee that nobody's going to come back. If there is an issue, we stand behind it, and our underwriters stand behind it. The other part is when we get the money, then we handle the distributions and protect everybody, that everybody's going to be paid off that's supposed to be paid off, and then we insure on that as well. So for the state of Texas, the title insurance rates are regulated, so that wherever you go, it's exactly the same.
You pay the dollar amount is the same.
Right.
What basically, and correct me if I'm wrong at any time, just stop and correct me. The difference, basically, the service that title company is providing you.
Absolutely.
Because the dollar amount, it's pretty much going to be the same across the board because it's regulated.
Absolutely. So I tell everybody that what to me is important is very important is that title companies get very busy because it's a very hectic, fast-paced environment. The most important thing is for example, for us, and it's a pet peeve of mine, you need to respond to phone calls and emails.
Yeah.
If not, that's grounds to be terminated.
You know what? Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Mansoor, because we actually left a couple of title companies just because of that.
Right, and that's important. I mean, to me, I tell everybody, I tell my staff, a lot of title companies, we're all victims to that. I'm not saying we're not, and I've had staff members do that, where you want to email. Sometimes you got to pick up the phone and call somebody, and you can get a faster response. But we don't sing, we don't dance, is what I tell my staff members. What we have to do.
You know what? We need to write
What's
that down.
the quote of the day?
We don't. If you don't sing, you don't dance. I like that.
So the only thing we have to offer is service.
Yes.
And that's bottom line. We have to be customer service oriented. If not, you can't be in business, because you need an update. You need to know what's going on to move the transaction along.
Yeah, and the reality is that, and this is my experience with title companies, I'm almost sure that these agents are getting hundreds, if not thousands, of emails a day, and yours can easily get lost in that sea of emails, and sometimes you just prefer to pick up the phone. It's going to be a 30-second call, like, hey, Is there anything I need to do on my side? No, we got it under control. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Or
I mean,
how do I fix, like we had yesterday with another title company that we work with. We had an issue where one of the properties we're actually assigning to another buyer. It's got the lady inherited the property, or she didn't inherit the property. Her husband died, passed away, but her husband had a daughter prior to the marriage. So now her daughter needs to be a part of the sale, or needs to
did it over
to her portion of the deal, right?
And the mom has passed away.
No.
No. She's alive.
She's the one selling the property.
She's the one selling the property to us, and we're assigning it. But we thought we were closing today, and they're like, we gotta get this paperwork done now by the daughter who lives in who knows where.
To convey her interest over.
Correct.
So, and those are some of the things that you're like, okay, can I pick up the phone real quick to make sure I can talk to a title company and say, hey, what do I need to do? Do I need to track this lady, or do I need to help? No, we got it. We already tracked her down. She's actually becoming part of the sale.
Right.
So she's signing all the paperwork out. We're submitting everything back to the underwriter. That way he can do the affidavit of heirship, and then we can close on it, and everything is clean. But sometimes sending those things by email,
I'm up
Things
for
get lost in translation.
Yes.
That happens
I'm
all
up
the
for
time.
technology, and I think it's great to have text messages and emails. But when dealing with title companies, I feel like I still need that phone call to get things,
at least to tell us where it's at.
Yeah.
Hey, we haven't received title commitment. Okay, thank you. Boom, that's it. Done.
Okay, well, let's go back to what you just said. So basically, the two purposes of the title company is to hold the money, or do the escrow part.
Right.
Because when you're doing a transaction, and this is very important for newbies out there. This is our practice. I think it should be like a norm, but some people do it different ways. But never give money to a particular person that's selling your property. Try to always go through a title company, because what happens is that if there's something wrong and you need to get that money back, it's easier to go through the title company and say, hey, the transaction didn't go through for this and this reason, and there's normally some paperwork that needs to be filled out, but the money's there. It's being held securely by the title company, versus the other person might say, yeah, I'm going to hold it, and first thing they do is they go shopping.
That's a very good point. I see that all the time.
Spend the whole money, and then when the transaction can go through, say, okay, that's fine, just return me the earnest money.
The contract said it was non-refundable. Yeah, but only if the title wasn't clear.
Okay.
But the title is clear right now, and you're not returning you're not returning my money because I gave it to you, and and the title company is pretty much they're tight. They can't do that. They can't give money that they don't have. They didn't collect.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a very good point. I see a number of those issues. I'm seeing less and less now as investors
Are
becoming
getting more
savvier.
savvy,
Yeah, so you don't see that as much, but I do see it several times a year, probably a couple dozen times a year, when people are giving money directly to the party, and they can't get clear title or things. Oh, where's the money, Johnny? Well, I've already spent it. I don't have it.
I'll give it to you next month when I close on another house.
Right.
I mean, don't do it. Go through a title company. So that's one very important.
If you're an investor and you're buying a house from a wholesaler, for the most part, the wholesalers are the ones doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Reputable brokers and people that they work. They are within the guidelines.
They strictly work with title
because
companies.
they know that they have a license that gets at risk, and we are wholesalers. And we don't take money from nobody. We just say, go to Transact Title, go to whatever title company we're working with at the time, and you're going to put your $3,000 earnest money there to the title company.
Yeah, make the check to the title company.
Put the GF number, because there is already a file open up on it. If it is non-refundable and they couldn't perform, the title company should release it to us. Mm-hmm. But if we couldn't deliver a clear title, then it goes back to the buyer, and it's simple.
So that's the one of the main reasons or main points of existence for a title company. The other one that Mansoor mentioned is that they do the conveyance of title, and the reason it happens that way is using the analogy of a car, is because a car normally doesn't get inherited from person to person. It lasts a short period of time, But when you're dealing with real estate, it's permanent. It's gonna last. I mean, it was created at one point by whoever you think created it, and it's there. It's gonna last forever. It's not something that disappears. So there's a track, right? A history of how that piece of property. At the beginning, it might have been, the entire United States. Then it was divided into colonies, and then into townships, and it keeps. I mean, the land keeps being subdivided, and every time it subdivides, it changes ownership. That has to be recorded
Absolutely.
correctly, and that's why the transfer of real estate it's completely different from like the transfer of, I don't know, your car or a boat that you're selling to someone. There's more into it because it's just something that has been transferred so many times that will keep being transferred. It will never disappear. So good. So what exactly does the title company does? I mean, you mentioned you go back in history and you look at how all these transactions have gone through and make sure that nothing was, no step was.
No step was done, and also to make sure that all liens were paid off, recorded, releases have been there. If there are any judgments that have all been cleared over the years past. And on top of that, we will also go back and look and search. Okay, so and so died at that point in time. It could be 2 or 3 transfers ago. There are no other heirs that came out after the fact or during that time or were missed.
Yeah, a missed child that will say, "Hey,
that would
I think this
money.
property
That's my money.
belonged to my great grandparent, and it was never."
And people come out of the woodwork after the fact,
Yeah.
because in this state, they have the option, which is very different than all the other states, that you can potentially avoid going through probate and go through the heirship route. So title companies do that on a daily basis. I mean, we do a lot of it because there's a lot of dead people in
Can you
Harris County.
explain a little bit about that difference
Right.
between what probate is and then what filling out an affidavit of heirship and when do you use what?
Right. Most people, when they go through probate, they do or do not have a will, or they may not have a will. Where you go to the judge, you file for probate, and the probate judge will decide how the distribution is going to be. There are certain rules that are already in place that said, okay, wife has a spouse has is a higher tier, has precedence, and the children have an allocation that gets distributed according to probate. The probate will then assign an executor that will oversee that. And when the sales happen, the judge may sign off on it. Okay, I authorize this sale, or say, okay, this is the way the distribution is going to be. This probate is closed out, and the executor is responsible for following the will and the judge's orders on the probate.
Okay.
Okay. And the other alternative is if the probate has not been initiated, and we can identify who the heirs are, and in disinterested, the title company can go down and create documents and conveyance documents and affidavits that say these are the known heirs. So based on this, the spouse gets this interest, the children get it, and we record it and transfer title without having to go through probate.
Okay.
It's a lot of investors. Some of the best deals you get, let's actually face it, are where people have been deceased and there are probate issues. Yes, they're hairier to deal with, but that's some of your best margin properties as well.
Yeah, they take longer to
Yes.
process. We have one right now that we've been sitting on for, I don't know,
Forever.
7 or 8 months, probably longer than that. And yeah, it was after Harvey, so it's probably gonna be a year now coming up soon, and it's a probate, and it takes a long time, but it's worth the wait,
Yeah.
And we've also had some good ones on divorce. When people are getting
Yes.
divorced, they're really, they're actually. We had one that
They're actually motivated.
but look, we had one that, and I'm not gonna get into addresses or anything like that. But we had a property where the couple was getting a divorce. It was a floated home, and the husband offered the wife to buy out her portion of it for, I think it was $75,000. And she's like, "Nope, we're gonna sell this thing and split it in half." So they went and sold the property for $100,000.
Wow.
Exactly. So
Yeah, I mean, you come across some people that things that don't seem rational to you, but I mean, they have their own way of thinking the way they do, and you gotta respect that. So in
Yeah,
this case,
I respect it because she was probably number one. I don't know if she really needed the money or not. Okay.
Right.
Number two, I don't know what the husband did to the lady. That way, she wouldn't have him keep the property. So there's a lot of things that we don't get involved with. But when we look at it from the outside, say, man, she could have just taken the 75 grand and walk away with more money instead of selling the house, right, and splitting it down the middle for less money, because the house really needed a lot of repairs. And so, anyways, we found out after the fact. Once we closed on the property, the buyer that bought it from us, because we wholesaled that one, he's the one that told us, because the previous owner showed up in the property to remove some things or whatever, and he's like, man, can you believe this is what happened with them? And I was like, oh, we didn't even know that. So
It's penny wise, pound foolish.
yeah. So that's what happened on that particular case. So sometimes just because they're not into agreement within themselves, they rather take less money and maybe piss the other person off or whatever, just to say it on.
or maybe like you said, she really didn't want him to stay in that property that. Maybe she was the one who built it or decorated it, and it's like, no, I'm not going to let it. I mean, who knows?
When you have a divorce, it can be, it's very heated, very emotional. It's very contentious a lot of times, and they're not ever talking to one another. So we deal with that a lot. So basically, you convey the message from one spouse to the other spouse.
Yeah, you become
basically.
a mediator.
A mediator in a sense.
All right, well, let's talk about something. We have a lot of listeners out there that have never done a deal. And they're listening or watching us, and they want to know, okay, once you get a property under contract, what's the next step? What do? They just send it to you with some money, or how does the process work? So
basically, the process is very simple. Once you have it under contract and you've got a bona fide contract.
Let's stop real quick. I'm gonna interrupt you. We're gonna call this segment Opening Title 101 by Mansoor from Transact Title, okay? And this is, I want to talk about this because a lot of people have, before we get to opening title, I want to get to the contract portion. A lot of people are like, do I use a one-pager contract, a three-pager contract, or in Texas, where we are in Houston, do we use a the TREC contract, which is like 9 pages?
It's 10 now.
It's 10 now? Okay. So
they just added one.
We just got updated, okay? So, Mansoor, from your perspective as a title company, really, what should a wholesaler or a real estate investor should be using? Is it a TREC or the one-pager or the three-pager?
I mean, it depends on the format. I personally, I like the TREC contract because of the fact it's even keel, but it covers everything that you could possibly think of. The one-pagers are very limited. They don't cover a whole lot, basics. It just says we're going to convey title. Typically, we'll purchase it when you convey title. It's loose and whatnot. It works. We're seeing a lot more and more, but we still have a lot of investors that use the TREC contract because they don't have to think about it. And most of the seasoned investors, believe it or not, just use the TREC contract. Most of the ones that have been doing it for years. But we do see a lot of the newer investors, they just use the one page. I mean, I like longer contracts, to be honest with you, because of the fact it specifies a lot of issues when it comes up. And there's always issues that come up. So, okay, let's look at the contract. The first thing we say is we follow the contract. Any title company strictly has to follow the contract.
Yeah.
They cannot, that's what you're going to the title company for. Who's going to interpret it? How are you going to enforce it? So we look at that. So when you have a one-pager, and they're not even fully one page, to be honest with you, the majority of them are like half a page.
Of a page.
Yeah, and the other quarter of a page is the signatures. So when you have 3 pages, that means you cover more detail. The TREC contract, they added 1 page. That was back around March. There were some modifications done. So it increases. So to me, that's fine. I have a 60-page contract on a commercial deal. Yeah, they've covered a lot of things. So I don't mind it. I've got some pages I've seen 200 pages. It's fine, no problem at all. More detail is better for me. It protects all parties. It spells it out. But it comes down to whatever you're comfortable with. But over time, I think a lot of people realize, hey, I like using the TREC contract because
it's fail-safe, I guess.
For us, I feel more comfortable talking to a seller saying, look, I'm using the state of Texas.
And those forms, that's a very good point that you bring up, Ricardo, because in fact, most customers have bought their home with a TREC contract. They're promulgated forms. They feel, hey, this is what all the realtors use. This is the contract. Nobody's changed the wording in there.
Correct.
They don't usually typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, they don't have any hesitation when they're looking to sign that, do they?
Dennis had one guy.
Just one. All the years we have been doing this, there's a part right towards the end before you sign. It says that you have the right to, use an attorney to, verify before you sign. We had a seller that said, "Oh, it says okay. It says there I can use an attorney. I want to use an attorney." So
But after he spent 2 hours reading line by line,
yeah, he
the
went
contract.
through the entire TREC
at the
contract.
title company, because we told them a lot of times our deals are actually signed at the title company. So we tell the seller, and this is a nugget for whoever is wholesaling out there. You can use this for your business as well.
Mm-hmm.
We tell the seller, say, look, we work with Transact Title, and they're out of the Galleria. Will you mind meeting us there to sign the paperwork? That way you can ask them all the questions that you may have. And
It's not all. I mean, when you sense they have doubt in
Yes.
what they're doing, then you bring that card out. You say, you know what, if it makes you if it makes you feel more comfortable dealing with us, let's go to a title company. You can talk to them, ask them who we are, how many deals we close here, that we're legit, we're not scammers, we're not all that, because some people are just scared of what they've heard on the news.
who are they signing a contract
and
with, right?
it's not like investors have the best reputation out there. So
Well, I mean, some investors have created a bad name for
everyone.
the rest of the good ones that are doing a good deed to sellers. So when we sense that they're not so sure about what they're doing, we're like, look, let's just come over to the title company. By the way, the title company doesn't work for us. They're objective, just like you said at the beginning.
Yeah, we have fiduciary duty.
Exactly.
To be
So
neutral.
they're looking after your interests. They're going to look after mine as well. So let's just make sure it's all clean. You can ask questions. They have attorneys. They have people there that know the subject and so that one particular one that Dennis is talking about, he went to the title company, sat at the conference room, read the entire contract line by line. It took him, he will text me, he's like, dude, I've been here for like 2.5 hours. This man is reading the whole contract. And at the end of the contract where it says you can consult with an attorney, then he's like, okay, I need to consult with my attorney.
Oh, wow.
And we're like, okay, but we're at the title company. And he's like, no, I'm going to find me my own attorney. So he went and did. And then later on, the attorney's like, man,
It's
you're
a
using
standard
this.
contract. It's
yeah,
fine.
the attorney
Yeah,
basically.
actually-
Well, what do you want me to say? I mean, this is a standard contract. What are you worried about? So 2 or 3 days later, he was like, okay, I'm ready to sign.
Right.
But so yeah, that was a good question about what contract to use. Now, once that is
Once
done,
you use the TREC contract, nah, just kidding.
What'll happen is once you have the contract, most title companies, their order department will then input everything in there, and then we'll send out here's your GF number, here's your assigned escrow officer.
Do you have to have money attached to the contract for the contract to be valid?
If the contract calls for consideration, then you should have consideration. If the contract does not call for consideration, then you don't have to. I mean, typically, I always like to make it advisable to everybody. You should have some consideration on it, even if it's $10.
That's what we do.
You will see a lot of contracts. They'll say for even though the money not be exchanged for invaluable consideration of $10.
Yeah.
They'll put that in there. So I always recommend that to everybody.
Okay.
A lot of investors don't put anything in there. But I mean, $10 is nothing, right?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a
We
matter-
sometimes we put more.
Yeah.
it depends.
I think it's
depends on-
better to put $10 than put zero, or even put $1 for that matter.
Right.
Mhm.
So it just strengthens the actual contract. You receive something in exchange for that.
Good. Okay, so once a real estate investor or a wholesaler got a property under contract that they sat down and filled out with the seller,
Right.
what is the next step when they bring it over to you? at
So
the
we bring it
title
over, deposit the earnest money. We will then give an escrow receipt, send that out. We will also send out an email that says, hey, here's a unique identifier and good faith number, GF number for your transaction. And who is your escrow officer? We will open the file up. The escrow officer will start working the file. At the same time, simultaneously, the title plant, which is a very important function, they will then go back and start researching the property and the history for all of the previous conveyances as well, and go back from the beginning, typically to the end, to make sure everything is clear. In the meantime, the escrow officer will be looking at, okay, once you get the report back, we will also do a tax certificate, order that to see, hey, what are the outstanding taxes, and then start clearing off the conditions on the title commitment. There's several parts of title commitment. The most important part is Schedule B, which is these are the exceptions to the title that we will not be able to insure. All title companies are not going to insure your utility easements and whatnot, everything that's a public record that's, that you can't insure on. And Schedule C, which is important to the title company, is the conditions to close. So title companies say, we will close this upon the completion of these tasks.
It's like
a checklist of sorts.
Exactly.
Right.
We'll close if
these things.
All these
things
conditions
are taken
met.
care of.
Right. And it could be, hey, this judgment is paid off, this lien is paid off, this airship is done, these affidavits are done. Okay, once
Or
these
we
are
need receipts that this HOA fee was paid, and stuff like that.
Right. So then once we clear, the escrow officer will clear that, and at that point, then we'll order the payoffs or whatnot. We will find out, okay, the buyer's information, work with their lender to give them the commitment and whatnot. And a lot of times they'll need extra endorsements, or they'll need what we call ICLs, insured closing letters. We'll work with them to get it to the point of getting the closing table. At that point, we kind of take over to make sure everything's buttoned up. Work with all the lenders, the realtors, the brokers, buyers, sellers, to put it all together to get it to the closing table, so everybody can get paid. The lenders don't typically trust one another, so they look at us, and then we pay off any past due taxes and whatnot. So when you get that property, you can rest assured everything's been done. And that title insurance policy is for the life of the property, unless you go back and get a refi or change title to the property, then it ceases. But otherwise, it's a one-time expense. For a nominal expense, you've got a lifetime of insurance and coverage. Not like you're paying life insurance, you're out on a home policy where you're constantly paying for.
Yeah, every year you have to, or every 6 months you have to renew it. So it will last as long as that person owns that property, they'll be insured on the title. And then when they go to sell, the process pretty much repeats again for the new buyer.
Right.
Correct.
Exactly the same process will actually kick into place.
Yeah.
Again.
Okay. And why does...
Man, that's a great business to be in the title insurance.
Well, there's a lot of risk also. You have to keep that in mind.
I mean,
we're
but you're
insuring
selling
risk.
insurance, like every time the property exchanges hands, you're selling insurance on something that was already insured in the past. So
Yeah, but new things can be added, like
absolutely,
liens and stuff like that.
agree. But
And
if it's clean, that's
what I was gonna ask. How do you determine how far back you're gonna go? I mean, are you gonna go back to the 13 colonies? When they
No, I mean on certain
where Christopher
properties,
Columbus,
typically a lot of times, you'll go back minimum 25, 30 years or 35 years even, and some properties where we have doubts, we'll go back to when the state was established to that beginning.
the 1800s or 1800s.
we have one that we bought, and it was a mess, and we're actually in the process of trying to figure it out with the title insurance what was conveyed to us, because at some point the land, let's say it was a 1 acre tract,
Right.
okay, at some point the land was gifted to a church, and then when the church returned it back to some sort of trust that this family had, it wasn't 1 acre anymore, it was like half an acre. But then the city had it recorded at 1 acre, so now we're like, we don't even know how much we got. So now when we got it, we were under the impression that was about 8,000 square feet of land. But in accordance to everything else, it should be something like 13,000 square feet of land. So now that we're going through that deep, I guess, resolution, it's cost us money on lawyers and things of that nature. We're claiming title insurance that, hey, you guys didn't really verify how this property was deeded and conveyed with the right coordinates in. And now we have two different surveys. So one survey is showing something, and another survey is showing the older sticks. So We're going through some.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
it is horrible, um, and it's probably going to be our next office, not next year, but the following year, whenever. Because I don't want to put money into it right now.
No.
I don't know if I can build on it. I don't.
No, and you're doing the right thing, because a lot of people, when there are issues, will want to continue the rehab or start building on them. I'm telling them, don't do anything until you know you've got everything clear, because you don't want to buy a headache. So I tell somebody, sometimes, we're not in the business of buying
Well,
a claim.
we already bought the headache. I just now need to figure it out.
You got title.
What kind of headache I got?
Yeah,
right?
you don't want to keep spending more money
Right.
and go deeper into
Yeah,
the hole.
because also the way the building is, which we have to knock down anyways, the building is actually supposedly encroaching the property in the back. So, I mean,
It keeps
Yeah, you want to
getting
know.
be-
Yeah, you
it
need
keeps
to know.
getting better and better.
yeah, it just keeps getting better and better. But anyways, going back to
I was gonna ask, why is it that, for example, and again, I'm asking, like, the newbie out there, but when we, submit the contract to the title company, one of the things they do, they order documents from an attorney, right?
Right.
And for the most part, it's 3 documents they order. You got a deed of trust, you got a warranty deed with vendor's lien, and you got your promissory note if there's
Right.
money being loaned to you, like from a private lender. Can you explain what those documents are and why they
Right.
need it?
Okay. Those are all good points to bring up. The general warranty deed or the special warranty deed, will actually convey the title. So if you've got a lender, he wants to secure his interest in the property.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That makes sense, right? So he wants to do a promissory note to say these are the specific terms that we are going to have: interest rate, amortization, acceleration clause, do's and don'ts, everything spelled out for both parties.
Yes.
And obligations, more so on the borrower's part, right? And then at that point, there will be a deed of trust with a vendor's lien. So on that title that you have, that's being conveyed to you, there will be, hey, I have an interest in this property, first lien, second lien, third lien position, that specifies that for this amount that I'm extending to you, I have a claim and a lien on this property to secure the loan that I've made to you.
So if
and that's
you don't
where the
pay, I
vendor's
can
lien,
grab the
yeah,
property.
that's where the vendor's lien comes into play on the
Right.
deed of trust, and the vendor being the lender.
right.
Yes.
Okay. So what else? What was the other one you asked?
Well, deed of and to me, it's I'm not.
So the deed of trust is basically conveying the property from
Yeah,
one person
basically.
to the other one.
And
That's
putting
just
a lien on the property at the
Transfer
same
of
time.
title, right?
Right.
So yeah, so the title is one thing. Is the title an actual piece of paper that?
No, that's a loose term. So yeah, the title itself, when conveying title, you could go back to the deed. That's what's conveying title to you, right?
See, that's the part that always confuses me.
That
If
confuses
If
everybody.
the title is a piece of paper and then the deed of trust is a piece of paper that conveys the one piece of paper to the other person, I mean,
Okay,
it always.
let's not complicate people
Yeah,
there. You can stay with your complications.
I will. Yeah, one day I'll understand.
No, what you need to do is go back to this video, watch it, and allow Mansoor
And all you gotta
to
do is pick up the phone and call.
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, it's fairly simple, right? What are the documents, the different documents you just talked about?
Mhm.
Deed of trust, warranty deed with vendor's lien, which is basically securing the property back to your lender if you have one. If you don't have a lender, then that document doesn't exist because you're
Right.
If
just
you're paying cash.
paying
yeah.
cash.
Right.
And okay, let me ask you a question. Quit claim deeds.
Oh wow. Okay, that's title companies in the state of Texas will not insure on a quit claim deed,
Right.
At all. And in most states, that was very common, even in Texas many years ago. And some states you still have that. I still see some being used in the state of Florida, for example, quit claims. But in the state of Texas, they don't, because of the fact, it's not a proper conveyance. We don't insure. And so a lot of times when there is a quit claim deed, title companies will say, you know what, we need a new deed to transfer
Yes.
it over, because of the fact it's a shortcut, but to me it's the same amount of effort to do a quit claim deed versus doing a general warranty deed or a special warranty deed, because
Okay.
you're not getting the complete rights when you convey over on a actual quit claim deed.
Yeah. I was reading a little bit about that when we were doing a special warranty deed. and try to understand what exactly and you
And
know
the special
it's
warranty
all legal stuff.
Yeah, and the
but
special
it's
warranty
interesting.
deed, a lot of when a lender sells a property or REO property or in commercial transactions, you'll see where they'll say, okay, I'm going to they will request or specify in their own contracts that they want a special warranty deed. And the biggest thing, the actual difference, to break it down into layman's terms, is the seller on that special warranty is given a warranty of sorts that during the time of my ownership,
Everything was clean.
everything was clean. Whereas the general goes back to whatever title issues are there. But I tell people, don't get too hung up on that in a sense, because the title company is going to insure it. So we're not going to issue a commitment or insure on the transaction. Well, we'll issue a commitment, but we're not going to insure on it unless we are satisfied that everything was done clearly and was specified according to our standards or the underwriter standards, and then we feel comfortable it's conveyable title to you that's going to be free and clear.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Now, the other question that most people have out there is, and I know these varies dramatically from case to case, but what would be the quickest that a title company like Transact Title can provide title commitment in order to purchase or sell a property? Like for investors, that's like critical, right? They
Right,
want to know
absolutely.
if it's going to be 3 days, it's going to be 3 months. So
Right. Typically, we have our own in-house title plan. We don't outsource anything. In-house policy department.
and that's
in-house
very
real estate.
important what he just said. I mean, can you explain why is that
Right.
important?
It's important in several different factors. For one, of their own resources. So if you have an issue, we can pick up the phone and call our own people and say, or email and say, hey, what's the issue? Why do you have these conditions on there? Explain to us further. Or, hey, we think this is different. Can you work with it? Whereas when you outsource it, you're kind of their beck and mercy, as to when you get. You're in a queue system. I mean, we have our own queue system as well for our own users. But you're lower on the poll. So and the commitments, they're all busy because they're doing it for a bunch of title companies. Okay, so they don't necessarily gonna get back to you within 3 or 4 days or 5 days. So yeah, it may be cheaper for the title company to do it that way, but you do lose something in that you don't have access directly to the title plan. You aren't able to get faster commitments because they're only doing it for you. So obviously the load is going to be less. Yes, we have our loans, but it's significantly less. So for example, for us, on average, it could go up or down. Is about 3 days. In the winter times, last year for whatever reason, I mean, with the title plan was getting them out almost a day and a half. We're
Yeah,
getting
less
title plans
transactions
back.
too, right?
Yeah,
So
it's less. It's
you don't have
cute.
that many people moving
Summertime,
during,
yeah.
like the summertime.
Summertimes get busier. So even right now, we're averaging about 3 days, which is really good.
That's good.
That's good. Yeah.
And commercial transactions typically 5 days, sometimes less. It can come back. If it's large acreage tracts, that's a lot more time-consuming work that takes place. So that's the reason why we're able to get it back faster. And the biggest thing is you're able to talk to somebody from us. For each office, that can talk. It's like going to lenders at Chase. You put an application in, people take the application. After that, they can't tell you anything. They look in the computer. They don't know.
Right.
Yeah, and
It's a
and
personalized service.
and that's a big difference again. If you go to like a retail title company, most of them outsource. The examiners are used by everyone, and they're
They could be
busy
here.
and-
They could be overseas as well.
yeah,
so it's a
exactly,
lot
and
of
they don't
different
have their
factors.
own people like what Mansoor is referring to, like in-house people that they can pick up the phone and get an answer. It's more like everybody's using an outsourced office like in Chicago, I don't know where, and they're at the mercy of those peoples before they can provide
Let's
title commitment.
let's refocus real quick on transactions, Mansoor. And one of the transactions that's becoming very popular, or it's been popular, it's just that a lot of people don't know how to do it, is the subject to transactions.
Right.
Can you explain a little bit on the process on the subject to and what makes a subject to transaction continue to transfer clean, to the next buyer?
Right. So what happens on a sub two? You're a very good point. I mean, I'm seeing a lot more sub twos. They've been around for a long time, but I haven't seen sub twos until probably the last couple of years, I've seen a lot more sub twos. I think it's also because they're getting more educated from other investors like yourselves that are educating other potential
We're not
investors.
educating people. We're just
Well,
we're
I
not
mean,
in that educational
no,
world.
no. In terms of medium with these podcasts
I understand,
and things of
I
that nature, that people are
We
able
talk
to
about
learn.
it here all the
Right,
time on
everybody
our
talks
show,
about
sub
it.
twos
So
and wraps.
it's great. So what happens is basically the seller is going to have the mortgage. You're able to keep the existing mortgage in place, so you don't mean, which is great for you because you don't have to go out and get another loan.
Yes.
And it's not on your credit, right? So you keep the existing mortgage and take over the liability of whatever the terms may be, the payments over there. We as a title company will then be able to insure on that transaction. There are disclosures that need to be executed and signed so that all parties are aware of it, or when you go to sell it, if you keep the sub two in place. But we have all the disclosures signed or whatnot, so everybody's aware of everything from our perspective. But that existing mortgage came in. So because we know that there is a mortgage that's already in place, you're aware of it, we're aware of it. That's an exception to title that we're not going to insure because we know that mortgage is there. But everything else we're able to insure on, so it's standard. It's a very effective medium to do a sub two or a wrap, and to be able to get it closed as well.
And the wrap. So because the wrap happens after the fact of the sub two. Like sub two goes first, right?
Well, either people usually do one or the other, sub two or the wrap. The sub two, basically, both of them keep the existing mortgage in place. One is where you've got the existing mortgage, and you're making on the sub two, you're going to pick up payments directly to the lender and start sending them in. Where the wrap is where the seller's got that mortgage existing. The seller is going to then put another mortgage on top. It's like you're wrapping another mortgage. So you're going to make payments to the seller directly, and then he's going to make it to the bank. If you're on the investor side, okay, which we do a lot of investors, I personally would suggest to the investors that do it subject where you make the payments directly to the lender, so you control that process. Now the benefit also, with us is because we understand it, we know the disclosures, everything's executed. We also have a in-house real estate law firm that can prepare all of the conveyance docs, the loan docs, can generate everything for you. Along with, and you want access to the accounts. So we understand as a title company, like, hey, it's, when we order the docs from us, hey, we need to get a power of attorney so the
that's
party
very
that
important.
has it so can get access to the mortgage later
Very
to get the
important.
payoff. Because, a lot of title companies, they'll just send it, but some, because of privacy rules or whatnot, will not send it. So you want to have that access to get it because that seller may be long gone. They're a distressed seller, right?
Right.
They're out of the picture. So you want to be able to have that.
Yeah. How to communicate with the with the existing
Lender.
Lender, in case you need to do whatever.
Well, that's a lot of good information, Mansoor. Let's talk about you.
Sure.
Where do you come from? How do
Sure.
you end up in real estate?
Well, real estate's in my blood. From the age of probably 9 or 10, my dad, was a doctor, but on the side he always was in real estate. So he was doing a lot of buy and holds, then buy and flips. But at that point, you didn't have any of this education that was available, which now it's so much easier.
Your
Fingertips, internet, this, that. Before that it was buying HUD, REO, distressed sellers. To where at that point, I remember at the age of 16, I did my first. Well, at that point, there was really no term. It was a short sale. It was a USDA loan. So it worked out for them. At that point, now I'm like, okay. Years later, that's what they call a short sale. Well, the term came about. So it was a natural progression, in real estate, and then later in life, I've had other businesses, but on the side, I always had some interest in real estate, to where I was buy and fix, flip. Basically, didn't care for the rental market too much because my dad had a lot of rentals, and
it was a headache.
it was a headache.
Toilet calls, and the AC
and
broke
all that. So
down,
I was never interested in that.
People
Then-
didn't pay their rent on time. We know it all.
So then later I got in the progression of I started developing land and building residential and commercial properties. That has its own nuances where we're talking about deal with subs and whatnot as well. Later at the end of the day, I kind of came to the realization, rehab is a lot easier to do than new construction.
Yeah.
I like the new construction. It's a different animal, but the rehab thing, I think it's more steadily available. It's less risk as well.
Yes.
So I kind of continued in it. When I was building, I had a strong interest because I used to buy properties. Lots are always hard to come by when you're a custom developer, custom builder. So I started buying properties that had title issues, easement issues, the stuff nobody other builder would buy
Touch, yeah.
or developer. So I was like, okay, I'll work that and find that. So over the years, I had, okay, they have an easement issue, they have an HOA issue, how to deal with that. So then, many years ago, when I moved to Texas, I was in the East Coast, in Atlanta. When I moved here, it was very difficult to get a barrier to entry to get into the industry. I had an interest of, okay, I want to get into the title business because it's the thinking outside the box.
Now, are
and the
you an
logic.
attorney by?
No, I'm not an attorney.
Okay.
I'm a title officer, and also we have a 1031 exchange company. I'm also a 1030
Okay.
an exchange officer, QI, as well.
Okay, understood.
But we do have in-house counsel
Right,
as
right,
well,
right,
yeah,
right, right.
that takes care of everything.
Good, good. You see, you don't have to be an attorney to own.
Not in the title business. It's basically the experience and the training that you get. We have a lot of compliance hours that we have to fulfill and whatnot. So, in terms of real estate, I tell everybody we're always learning something new.
Right.
So I talk to other attorneys, they're like, they don't know. So typically, most attorneys will pass everything off to the title company
They're
to take care of.
specialized maybe on what they do, and
Yeah.
and working around outside the box is not really something a lot of them do.
No, and in title there are ways to think outside the box to structure the deal. I tell the investors, everything is possibly doable, but it has to be compliant and RESPA compliant. So there's always a way around to make things work and to still be compliant, and then that way you have no issues.
That's an
in the
entrepreneur,
future.
man. That's the truth of being an entrepreneur, because
Find a way.
you gotta find a way. We were riding around yesterday with somebody that it's up in age already, but he's an entrepreneur, and he was driving, and he said, if you tell me to build a car, I will build it. I will figure it out. I don't know how to build one right now, but I will go and figure out how to put a car together, because that's what I do. I just work on making things happen, and that's really what you're explaining right now, which is on the title business. You got to look at everything and say, okay, what do we have to? What is the problem we got to solve?
Absolutely.
Work around it. Think outside the box. And a lot of like engineers. Dennis is an engineer by degree, right? But he's an outside the box thinker. But a lot of the other engineers I've met, they won't step because there's boundaries that they won't,
Right.
cross or whatever.
And that's typically within the title industry. We're, it's a very old industry, old way of thinking. So things are changing, and I tell everybody that you have to adapt and start thinking creatively. And a lot of the younger generation, they enjoy the thinking outside the box and say, okay, this is how we could possibly accomplish this, and get the property closed and still be compliant.
Okay. So you're originally from where?
Originally from my dad was from India, my mom's from actually Pakistan. I was born here. My dad came in the early '60s here.
You're a first generation
Yeah.
American, basically.
Right. Absolutely.
And you grew up in Atlanta, or?
Yeah, basically in the Atlanta area.
I was born in Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
So go figure. I know Peachtree, right? Everything is called Peachtree over there.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
some
everything-
Boulevard,
Yeah.
Peachtree
They got
Lane,
more
Peachtree
peach trees
Valley.
over there than anywhere else in the
And
country.
you lived in Atlanta too for
Yeah.
a little while, right?
6 months.
Yeah. So
Bughead and all that.
Yep, yep.
Buckhead is a nice area.
Yeah. That's
So
exactly where I used to live, actually.
and you went to I mean, you basically you lived in Atlanta for
Many years. I moved around. I lived in Charlotte, lived in Delaware, and other areas around the country. And I had a consultant job as well, so moved around.
and
a
now
lot.
Houston is where it is.
Yeah, for many years now. It's been Houston. My wife is originally from here. And,
Okay.
wanted to move back, and it's been good. I like the dynamics of Houston. I
Oh,
like
I
the
thought you were gonna say you
international
like the hot
population.
weather right now. It's,
The hot
it's-
weather is an acquired taste, right?
It's like
over here.
105 degrees.
Thank God for air conditioning, as
Right.
I have to say.
Yeah, earlier when we started the podcast, I was sending a message saying, "Hey, the AC is pretty hot right now. Man. You guys need to crank that down because it's getting pretty hot outside." So, all right. So basically, that sums it up on Title 101, man. This is a good. We appreciate you coming.
Oh, thank
you
for having me out.
Can't appreciate you enough. I know this subject is a very deep subject. People had many questions, and I think we have been able to cover all the basics and what is the most important, for our audience is what is a investor-friendly title company. I think we have covered that. I know you mentioned it at the beginning, but can you repeat again? Where do you have offices? Because I know it's
Sure. We have office in Houston, Sugar Land, Katy, and the Woodlands. We are able to close anywhere in the state of Texas. We're able to offer statewide services, residential or commercial. On the 1031 exchanges, we do them all over the country. That's under the name EcoCap 1031 Exchange. And on the commercial side, we do commercial anywhere in the country on the commercial side.
Okay.
Okay. And again, if you want to get a hold of Mansoor, his telephone number is 713-429-5436, or his email, Mansoor, MANSOOR, at transacttitle.com. And we're going to have that information posted on our, if you're watching this video on YouTube, it's going to be down in the comments area. So, again, we want to thank you so much, Mansoor, for being here.
Yeah, and visit their website. Transacttitle.com is TRANSACTTITLE.com. I saw that. I was visiting your website when I met you a few weeks ago at the REI event that we're both sponsors of. And I went in there, and you had a section on your website where you can check where your file is, like the progress of the file, and maybe can you talk about
a tracking?
It's like a tracking
Yeah,
device.
it's like a tracking thing, and we're actually getting ready to release next month something called paperless closer, basically, that you can pretty much go in and check the status on the file and see where things are at. Okay, we will then post, ordered HOA, we can check it off, and you'll be able to see in real time. Now, certain confidential information is not going to be on there, but basically you'll be able to get the snippets as to where things are at, or if we say that there's notes on it, so we can just check it off, so you can see it from the comfort of your home, your iPhone, your iPad, Android device. You'll be able to get it in real time, or even get the notifications. We can have it set up to say you have a unique user ID and password, so every time something's done, you can even get an email if you want, so that things are
for the millennials out there.
Yeah.
No, and for us, that we want to know where things are all the time, just so we know what we need to do. Because a lot of the times it's not that we want to pressure the title company to give us. No, we need to know what we need to do in order to make that file.
And
close.
that new feature is going to be available sometime next month. So you can just go to the website and click it on, and you'll be able to get it anytime you want.
I think that feature is going to bring you a lot of clients because they can see where the file is at any given time. And anyways, I want to thank you for being here.
Thanks
Mansoor.
for having me out. I appreciate it.
Remember, this is Opening Title 101. So go ahead and check this episode on Google, Stitcher, YouTube, renovatingrichesradio.com. Don't forget to give us a 5-star review. You need to hit and subscribe, share. If you like anything we said on this show, just invite another friend. That way they can get the value that we're putting together for you guys to go out there and be successful. So thank you so much for listening and watching this video. Thank you, Mansoor, again.
Thank you for
coming in. We're probably going to have another one later on, maybe more in depth on maybe talk about different title issues that people come across, and how a title company can help them work around it, what's good to carry on forward or wasn't you shouldn't touch. But we'll leave that. If you have a question about any of the show, just send us an email, send us a message, go to our Facebook page, send us a little message, and we'll forward your questions to Transact Title. That way they can get back to us or back to you. Do you have a Facebook page?
We do. It's under Transact Title.
Transact Title. Go out there, hit like, and send them a message if you have a question. If you need to open title, make sure you get that contract signed by the seller. Put a little bit of money in it to make it, more real bust. Take it to Transact Title and tell Mansoor we sent you out there. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.